Well, that episode is going to be a tricky one to review in its entirety, as it really does leave off as a part 1 of 2, and the finale is going to have to surmise where all this has been leading. That may reshape my opinion of this episode, but until then let's work with what we've been given. Unfortunately, this part 1 feels like it literally is half a book torn mid-paragraph. Hi, Rick here with a review of Star Trek Picard Episode 9, Et in Arcadia Ego Part 1. I think that name roughly translates to something like And in Paradise, Me. Further googling it revealed that it was the name of several paintings centred around death in a paradise, so that's sort of foreboding. This episode had a strong start, but everything after that was just sort of meh for me, which doesn't bode well for the finale, but as I said, this is just a part 1. That introduction, however, when the Borg cube arrived from Transwarp, I literally said, holy shit, it was amazing to see, as well as the image of that behemoth of a structure hitting the atmosphere of Coppelius. But, thing is, thanks for the rescue attempt, Seven, but, you failed. Spectacularly. Admittedly, she probably didn't account for a planetary defence network of giant energy-draining orchids, but hey, who does? Those orchids were very strange, but like something weird and wonderful from early TNG, it's quickly established that they are artificial in origin, probably made in a similar bio-organic chemistry kind of way as Soji was. They actually envelop a ship, drain its power, and allow gravity to do the rest. However, the orchids seem to also protect the defenceless vessel as it re-enters and crashes, a very peaceful way to deal with intruders. Although the Borg cube seems a little bigger than they can manage, and the ship still has power, despite now clearly being stranded on the surface. Seven and Elnor reunite with the crew too. However, Elnor hasn't really had much to do recently, and like I said, Seven's big entrance ended with the entrance. But at least all the pieces are together now for the final part, which must be the only reason. With 218 Romulan ships inbound, there's going to be a space battle at the end, and I'm wondering if Starfleet will make an appearance. Considering Picard's message doesn't look like it got through, and they're at least 25 light years away from the artifact, the fleet of Starbase 12 might not make an appearance at all. Better get building those flowers, but the finale is going to need more than just explosions. The android colony was not what I expected, it was actually more. Again, I'm reminded of early TNG episodes like Justice, with the lovely, pretty environment and the happy, healthy inhabitants. I enjoy seeing various stages of androids, those clearly positronic Soong style, and some far more biological like the Ashes, and maybe some in-betweens. I noticed that they must all be the product of fractal neuronic cloning as well, as they're all twins, and we meet Jana's double, Sutra. I was trying to see if the theme of data law was present in the naming conventions here, with Jana Sutra or something, but I couldn't really find anything. In Sanskrit the words seem to mean people and texts, so maybe that's a thing? Anyway, speaking of lore, we get to meet another descendant of Soong, played once again by Brent Spiner. A reoccurring joke in Star Trek has been Spiner playing most of the Soong-related men, including the progenitor of Noonien Soong, whom this new character, Alton Inigo Soong, reminds me of the most. Thing is, Noonien never had kids, and despite my smiles at seeing Spiner again, part of me was just going, what, really? Emotionally, loved it. Logically, hated it. So am I just being paranoid, or is there more going on here? Also, his initials spell out AI Soong, and I'm starting to sound like a Romulan now, so moving on. The admonition gets some more background added here. Sutra makes the assumption that the visions are also jumbled because they were not meant for organic minds, which is why those who touch the wibbly thing go wibbly mental themselves. She interprets the visions through Jurati's mind using a mind meld. I don't really have an issue with a non-Vulcan performing a mind meld, as it's theoretically possible that she modified her physiology to replicate the biochemical energy that Vulcans produce. See my appropriately timed index on the species for more #shameless plug. We learn that this force that will sweep across the galaxy is in fact a unity of evolved artificial lifeforms from beyond space-time that span galaxies, which now gets me thinking of Voyager and how it ascended in the motion picture. Maybe it's a thing that AI will seek to do. Anyway, it's not a warning for organics, it's a beacon for synthetics, and instructions on how to contact these supercomputers if they need a rescue. All sounds cushy, and like the notoriously paranoid Romulans are wrong, right? Well, yes, but actually no, because it sounds like this extra-dimensional coalition's idea of help is to raise organic civilization to the ground. This is likely what happened 200,000 years ago, and that reminds me, I'm going to make another Mass Effect video soon. Honestly, borrowing storylines doesn't bother me that much, but the parallels here are too big to ignore. Let's address some elements from my last review and speculation video quickly, which seems to have exploded when compared to my prior ones, so if you're here off the back of that one, hi, welcome, and thank you for checking out my stuff. So apparently Michael Chabon said in an Instagram Q&A... Instagram? Really? Alright. Apparently he clarified that the species that forged the Octuary star system were the Tkon, the remnants of their empire as seen in the TNG episode The Last Outpost, which I completely forgot about. However, as this was not confirmed on screen, it's not technically canon, but they fit better than any other species we know, and that was the intention behind the on-screen references. I still like the idea that this galactic threat that swept through the galaxy also destroyed the Iconians and other species, which is now even more likely given what we learn in episode 9. Second point. Someone pointed out the Star Trek Online depiction of Iconians didn't begin as villains, but became so after their planet was attacked by jealous races. This is also true, and I was just getting a little carried away with my theorising, blurring their timeline, but that's getting off topic. Learning of the admonition, Sutra, Soong and Jurati all seem to want to build the device to call out for help against the incoming Romulans, but Picard is willing to place his trust in Starfleet and try to evacuate the colony and reverse the artificial ban. Had we not seen Commodore O's manipulations, I would have agreed with Soong that it was naive of Jean-Luc to expect the Federation to listen to him. But now? I've been hoping since episode 1 that one of the end goals was to have the Federation begin to right its course once again, and I hope this is where we're headed. Some smaller things now. When I say Jurati remains redeemable, I didn't mean redeemed. She's not off the hook yet, and the way people are treating her as if nothing happened is a little strange. We get a little bit of admonishment from some, but it's not quite there yet. I believe Narek genuinely cares for Soji, but it's in a very unhealthy way. I also believe that Sutra orchestrated his escape and killed the guard in order to further justify the summoning of the Reapers. And finally, I don't think Raffi's admittance of loving Picard was romantic. I didn't get that feel, more akin to Picard's affection for Data in the last episode. A little extra fact too, the planet's name of Coppelius is from a story of Dr. Coppelius, who created a lifelike clockwork mannequin for a shop display that Franz, a passer-by, falls in love with because he thinks it's real. Finally, whose mind is going in that golem? Picard is dying, so it could be him, but I don't think I like the idea of a Robo-Picard. It could be a Maddox 2.0, but there's nothing to support that idea. Was Soong rebuilding it for himself then? We know mind transfer is possible, see TNG the Schizoid Man for that one. Or is it for a new Data? At this point, who knows? But will we see Picard transfer into that android and ascend with the extra-dimensional race to teach them of compassion and simultaneously explore the infinite galaxy and possibility of creation, just as Q promised him humanity would in its future? That would certainly be a dramatic exit for such an iconic character. Despite all the good I have to say about this episode, it left me feeling rather underwhelmed. Something about the pacing and jumbled nature of reveals took me back to the early episodes of Picard, and I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the ending was shot ahead of the previous episodes. I can't put my finger on just what was different, maybe it's a culmination of things, but Star Trek Picard has been on a ramping up roll with every episode doing better than before in my opinion, and it stalls here. The finale will tell if it slides back down to the bottom of that hill. So, as for a bit of in-universe lore, I thought we could explore the history of the Soongs to see if this new biological son could fit in anywhere. Chronologically in the timeline, the first Soong we encounter is Arik Soong, a 22nd century geneticist who didn't see a problem tampering with the human genome to create super soldiers, and considered Khan Noonien Singh a marvel of what could be achieved. When we meet him, he is in prison for stealing superhuman embryos left over from the eugenics wars and raising them in hiding. Anyway, these augments go on to cause all sorts of trouble, and Arik realises that he has indeed lost control of them and they no longer respect him. Superior ability breeds superior ambition after all. After helping him to rein them in again, he is returned to confinement to serve the rest of his sentence, but begins to study cybernetics now his faith in eugenics is lost. He speculates that his work will have to be continued by later generations. It should be noted that not all his work was about creating super soldiers. He theorised augmentations that would eliminate certain diseases, but Starfleet's ban on augmentation prevented much of his work from ever going public. During TNG, we get to meet Noonien Soong, the creator of Data, and the culmination of Arik's cybernetics work. He was part of the Federation Cybernetics divisions, where he was a pioneer of the positronic brain. However, after repeated failures to get his ideas working, his colleagues lost faith in him and he was effectively shamed out of the scientific community. He went into hiding. It's possible that he had a child before heading into hiding and left for Omicron Theta without him, but the kid would have to have been very young. It was on Omicron Theta where he met Juliana O'Donnell and she and Noonien fell in love, marrying in secret in 2328 when she was 25 and he a fair bit older. They were eventually unable to have children and they dedicated their time to perfecting the positronic brain, eventually creating B4, Law, then Data. Eventually the crystalline entity attacked and the pair fled, leaving Data inactive to be discovered years later by Starfleet, but Juliana was put into a coma during the attack. Before she died, Soong constructed a new Juliana android, his most realistic yet, copied her memories into the unit before her death, and the new Juliana activated, assuming that she had awoken from the coma. He did not transfer her mind directly, as this was something even beyond him. The closest he ever got was synaptic scanning, which only duplicated memories. Ira Graves, an associate of Soong's, was the one who developed the true transfer. Eventually, Juliana left Noonien and he remained on Trelina 3, where he eventually succumbed to old age. And Law. So as we see, either Soong had a child with Juliana, which I doubt as she never mentions it or seems even remotely aware of the prospect, or he had a child before he fled to Omicron Theta, and was too ashamed about abandoning him to ever mention it. A possibility at least, but still a bit of a messy retcon, as Noonien married Juliana in 2328, Alton would have to be over 71 at least by now. Which is Spiner's age, actually. I will say that Alton Inigo Soong seems to have inherited his father's work and gone into hiding, before the ban was even a thing. I'm sure Picard would have been aware of another living Dr. Soong before now otherwise. Of course, after the synth ban went into effect, Alton would have had no reason to reveal himself and every reason to remain hidden, considering he had elected to continue his father's work. One thing that does well for me, however, is that he talks about his time working with Bruce Maddox, saying that it was Bruce who really understood the positronic brain side of things, and that Alton simply constructed the bodies, which, as these have included organic ones, sort of merges Arik's work with Noonien's. That is, if all is as it seems. Still, thank you for listening to my review and lore dive on Star Trek Picard Episode 9, and I'll be delving into the final episode with optimism, though I genuinely have no idea what to expect now. One final question though, who do you think is going in the Golem? Until then, thanks again for watching. I've been Rick. Goodbye.